Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us. I'm excited to be here today. Glad to just be living another day. You know, the old saints would come in church and say, just another day that the Lord has kept me. It's just another day that the Lord has kept me. And we're so excited to be here and to share with you on our Expand Live. And we have got an exciting topic today. And I call it exciting because it's good to learn more about things that you don't already know about or get more knowledge and understanding of. So, again, I just want to welcome everyone to Expand Live with myself, your host, J. Danielle Taylor. And this show is being brought to you by Perfect 10 Ministries International in conjunction with the Life Center Women's Outreach Ministry. Did I get that right, Leanna? Yes, the Life Center Women's Outreach Ministry. And EXPAND stands for Exercise Potential and Nonstop Determination. We want you to grow. We want you to be encouraged. We want you to be inspired and be empowered. But most importantly, we want you to expand. So we're going to get started. And I did things just a little different today because I normally do the song right at the beginning, but I wanted to share kind of how I picked this song before our first guest comes on. I actually just learned it last night. And I heard it in the car and it was playing in my head. And I said to myself, like, this is absolutely perfect because of the fact that there are times when we feel like we're alone, that we are going through in life. And sometimes there's really not a person that's there for you. And I don't want to sound like a cliche, but I just know in some moments that I dealt with different things that when there was no one there, my faith was what carried me through. My faith, my determination, and my love for God is just really what carried me through, and His love for me. Let me say it like that. His love for me. And I just wanted to share this specifically. That's why I did it this way with these ladies, because this song was an encouragement. Last night was kind of low night for me. I think we all battle depression and different things at different times, but the words of this song just kept playing over in my mind, and it brought me some joy and relief. So I just want to share it with you all. And those of you that are at home, do me a favor, click the share button, share it on your page. Where we're talking about today, taking important, and we want to share with everyone the information and for these women to tell their stories and to let someone else is facing the same thing that they are dealing with, to know that you are not alone. We've been able to make it through it. You can make it through it too. And so please do share. Everybody hit the share button. Ladies, if you guys don't mind, hit the share button as well. I have everything I need. I have everything I need. I have everything I need. The great I am provides for me. The great I am provides for me. You are my strength when I am weak. You are my strength when I am weak. You are my strength when I am weak. The great I am provides for me. The great I am provides for me. The great I am that I am, He is more than the great I am that I am. He is more than enough for me. You're whoever I need you to be. You're the I am you are. You're whomever I need you to be. You're the I am you are. You're whoever I need you to be. You're the I am you are. Amen. You are everything I need you to be. And that song just stuck out, and I hope it was a blessing to you all as well. But in our times of darkness, in our times when there's nobody else, I just wanted to encourage someone and to let you know that God is everything you need him to be. He's your friend, he's your comforter, he's your guide, he's everything that you need him to be if you give him a chance. If you give him a chance. But without further ado, we're going to move right along in the program, and we're going to welcome our first guest. I want to say a couple of things about this young lady before I bring her on the camera. I guess I'll go ahead and bring her on now. Let's see. Hi, LaDonna. How are you?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
Wonderful. This is our first guest, everyone, Miss LaDonna Powell. And LaDonna and I have known one another for quite some time, almost 20 years.
Oh,
She's
wow.
been she's been my friend for almost 20 years. And with that being said, I know a whole lot of the things that she's dealt with when it comes to dealing with anxiety. If you don't mind me at least telling that part before you get into it. Today, we want to talk about our mental health. Since 1949, the month of May has been observed as Mental Health Month. And the color is a green ribbon or just the color green. So that's why we all have our green on today to celebrate the individuals in our community and in our lives that deal with mental health diagnoses, but keep on going and who overcome and continue life and learn how to cope and to still be productive members of society, be in productive relationships, be in productive careers. And so I just want to introduce my friend again, Miss LaDonna Powell, and she's just going to introduce herself and share with us some of the things that she has dealt with from a very young woman, even before I met you, if I'm correct, um, when she learned that she was diagnosed with anxiety. So welcome to Expand, LaDonna.
Hello, everyone. My name is LaDonna. I am 35 years old and a mother to a 13-year-old little girl, Jada. And
Hi, Jada.
oh, she's asleep, but hey. And so
Okay.
the journey, as Danielle was saying, with anxiety for me has been rather long. As far as I can remember, I was at the age of 4 when I started developing anxious type personality traits. And so they do happen in adolescence. So some of the signs to look for is your child being uneasy a lot of the time, um, sick out of nowhere, just out of the clear blue sky, feeling nauseated, break out in hives everywhere. You get headaches, things of that nature, or sometimes you just like wanting to be kind of to yourself. Keep in mind that I've always been the bubbly type. I've always been a people person. I've always, enjoyed just the funner things in life, but there was always that something that would never let go of me. And as I journeyed through life, I was diagnosed. I did go to the doctor on numerous occasions, and the doctors always diagnosed it as having a food allergy. So I was put on food
Hmm.
restrictions, and the restrictions were no citric acid in my diet for a whole year, And so within that year, they slowly started to introduce the foods back to me, and they thought they had alleviated the hives. Well, as time went on, I noticed like in school, as I went through the grade levels, I would get really dizzy. At certain events, I would get really lightheaded. I noticed I would cling closer towards the wall. I wouldn't walk in open spaces because I would always get dizzy and never could figure out why. Until one day when I was 15, I just had this episode where I legit got so dizzy, like I almost blacked out and was rushed to the hospital. And then again, yet again, because I was covered in hives and it just came out of nowhere, they thought it was an allergy. Well, after so many attempts of them trying to figure it out and me having to go to the hospital almost every day of my 15th year, a doctor came and he was like, you know what? You don't have an allergy disorder. He said, you have something called generalized anxiety disorder. And when he said it,
Mm.
and put a name on it, I'm looking, my parents are looking, and we're like, okay, what is that? What does this mean? What is this diagnosis? And he was like, you're
Mhm.
not gonna die from it. It's not nothing that you have to be, so scared about, but it is real. And what is real is like no matter the EKGs that were ran, no matter the blood work that was done, no matter the urinalysis that were taken, no matter the X-rays that were taken, no matter what they did to try to figure out what was going on with me, it always came back like all my testing was fine. So he was like, they said it was generalized anxiety disorder because I didn't have one particular trigger. And so this has been the journey of the who knows what, like what is the thing that triggers this thing, And so with this, it has caused great suffering. I say suffering because the average person could not deal with what I've had to deal with throughout the journey of the anxiety. The anxiety has brought me not only anxiety, but depression to follow. And then when I'm not anxious, I'm depressed. And then if I'm not depressed, then I'm very anxious. So they basically play with each other. So it's like a war that you're battling constantly, constantly. Um, it was a time in that period of time when I was diagnosed at 15, but I wasn't medically treated with medication until the age of 17. I was put on Lexapro and I was put on Ativan. And I took those medications faithfully. And I will say I had a turnaround with the medication. So medication is fine. There's nothing wrong with taking medication. And I was good for a good while. And I was going about my day. I was working regular jobs. I was in school, doing everything like the normal average person. And even though I was taking the medicine, I would have moments of having an anxiety or panic attack, but I would get through the day and I'd be just fine. Well, it wasn't until, let me see, I was 21 and I was pregnant with my daughter and I lost my dad all of a sudden. And because I knew that I was carrying my daughter and having to deal with the death of my dad, it was really, really complicated for me. And I didn't know how to balance the two out. So, with not knowing how to balance the two out, I think I suppressed a lot of what was going on with my dad to make sure that I had a healthy baby. And once I delivered her, everything went haywire from the moment of being in the hospital up until, and I just started to develop more issues within that anxiety. I
Right.
developed phobia, I developed claustrophobia, and I also had the depression that manifests. It went beyond postpartum. So at that point, I literally gave up. Like I was a robot to my daughter. I did everything based off of her needs and what I felt she needed done. But I physically became withdrawn from everything. The agoraphobia kept me from living a prosperous life. Like I legit stopped living outside of my home. And it took me 5 years. I was homebound. I had people like my family. I was surrounded by family. I was surrounded by loved ones, people that constantly were there to guide me and pray for me and do for me, but it wasn't enough. I prayed for myself. It was not enough. And one day I had got so down in the 5 years of having to stay home and bound that I literally wanted to give up on life. I started going in my mind of who would take care of my daughter, who would be the best person to do what it is that I would do for her and love her the way that I love her. Because as a mother, you want this for your kids. Well, when I got to the lowest of my low, which was contemplating suicide, which nobody knew that was around me because it was something that I hid within myself, um, I battled it many nights. many nights. And one day, one of my sisters, my older sister, she was like, Donna, she was like, you're already feeling like you're at your lowest. So there's
Mhm.
only place you can go from there is up. And when she said that, I'm like, what do you mean up? She was like, if you already feel this bad, it can only get better with time. So when she said that, I'm like, I already feel miserable. I feel like I'm dying every day, but I'm not dead yet. So would I want to spend the rest of my life feeling like I'm dying or die? Or do you have something to live for? Do you want to live? And my thing was I wanted to live. So I decided that, I would go back and seek medical professional help also, and then I would get back on medications because I did get off of them. And my life just somehow it started to turn around slowly before my eyes. I didn't even realize that I was making changes for the better. I went from not being able to graduate high school on time because of the anxiety taking over to receiving my GED to then going on to a university where I graduated with my associate's degree in business administration, all while battling the anxiety, but I still kept going and still kept going. And then I was able, at one point, I was at home with my mom and I couldn't leave the house. So I felt like I was going to be there. And I was able to break free. And I eventually got my own place and I got my own. I started back working in the work professional field. I was a manager in finance. And so I was able to do all these things. I was doing nothing. I was confined
Mhm.
to a space to where I just leaped forward and I held on to that very thing, and it was life. It was just like I have something to live for, and it was my child. And that went good and it had been well for a very, very long time, and I did everything exceptionally well. And then out of the blue, a few years ago, I want to say almost 2 years ago, I started to develop this really extreme form of anxiety that came out of nowhere. I was driving one day and then I just got a rush. And the rush felt so surreal that I had to pull over on the side of the road. And I was like, what's going on with me? And at that very moment in time, I realized that something was triggering the anxiety and I did not know what it was. And after that, it was attack after attack after attack, so much to the point where I stopped driving. That fear crept back in and it has retaken hold over my life, and I'm at a point in this very now where I'm battling it once again. So my whole being about the anxiety is a state of mind, but it's a state of being, and it can come at any point in your life, whether you're doing good, whether you're on top of the world, whether you are just really at your lowest of low. But in that, you have to find a reason. So every day I'm coaching myself and I'm listening to audios to where I'm able to better like push myself and I read up, I study up on exactly what it is that I have, so I'm aware of what it is, so I won't feel so far gone. And but yes, it's very real. Mental health is very, very real. The anxiety and depression, they both collide with each other and it will make you feel the worst of the worst. And with that being said, your family members suffer with you. Your family members, they are meant to suffer with you through no fault of your own, but they take on what you take on times two. They want to heal you, but they can't. They want to be there for you to help better you, but they can't. They want to know exactly what you feel like and what you're going through, but they'll never know because it's something that you almost can't describe for yourself. And so, to the person that is suffering and going through it, always remember that the people around you are suffering too. Sometimes we have to we have to be easy on them and not so overbearing and overly consumed with us that we forget to think about what it is that they're going through too. And so that is my take on the anxiety. Um, it's very pronounced, and the longer that you let it grow, Like it manifests, it turns into the biggest whirlwind for you, and you have got to start grabbing hold of the little things and build your way back up to where you feel like you're free of it, because it will take over your life if you let it. So that is my personal take on
And
anxiety.
thank you so much for wow, thank you so much for sharing that with us and for agreeing to come on because I know it takes a lot of courage and especially with dealing with anxiety, um, to not have the feeling of, is people going to judge me when I tell my story? And so thank you for sharing that with us and stepping up to say, hey, I do want to tell my story so that someone else can hear and understand. And I was writing a few notes. If you saw me looking down, I was paying attention. But I was writing a few notes when you were talking, and you kind of hit on some of it towards the end. But I want to go back to when you said you were initially diagnosed and you were school age. And that's one of the
Mhm.
things that we're going to kind of talk about with our other guest who's at the bottom of the screen. Miss Leanna went ahead and brought you in so I could make sure that you could participate in the conversation as well. So thank you, Leanna, for joining us
Yes,
also.
ma'am.
But Leanna, when she tells her story, we'll hit on the fact that the diagnosis was at a young age. So I guess for you, when you were young and dealing with this in school and nobody knew exactly what it was, did any of your experiences at school or did any of your experiences or episodes happen at school while you were in the classroom? And did it cause teachers and the staff to mislabel you because they didn't understand?
Yes, it did. I was labeled earlier on for having like an attitude problem or just not being able to like be quiet, and like I was the class clown and whatnot of the class, but I was very, very smart. I was really, really smart. I always did well with my grades and all that, but I was mislabeled, and for the life of me, I couldn't figure out, even for myself as a child, you try to figure out, okay, why this teacher doesn't like me? Why do I have a constant battle with a certain type of teacher? And
Mhm.
it was because when you have anxiety, your mind is constantly on go. There's no shut off button, to the anxious mind. There's no shut off button.
Mhm.
So when you're done with your work or when you're overwhelmed, it's like you fidget, you look for something else, you look for that next best thing that's going to keep you
Mhm.
occupied. And so for me, I was talkative because talking always, for some reason, kind of leveled me out. I always was like drawn to things that make me laugh, make me smile. So even if I had to be the person that stuck out, I was that person. Um, but I had several episodes in school where I thought I was going to die, honestly, because my chest out of nowhere started racing rapidly, and I just got dizzy all of a sudden, and couldn't catch my breath. And so imagine you literally not being able to catch your breath and you can feel your heart racing. It's like everything in you freezes and you literally don't know what to do. And before I was diagnosed, there wasn't a diagnosis. So I'm literally thinking something's wrong with me. And I was scared to tell my teachers because some of them were very like judgmental and just mean anyway. And then I was actually scared to tell my parents that what was going on with me because I thought it was something really major, and nobody wants to have a bad diagnosis, even as a child, that something's wrong with you. So I pretty much played it off as best
Right.
I can.
And, and I wanted to jump in there for a second because that was kind of the point that I was getting at is whenever these things happened, when the teachers responded or dealt with you, and even I guess after you got had the diagnosis and you finally found out what it was, and taking those experiences and even looking at now because you do have a child that's in school and in the local school system, do you think that the teachers are adequately equipped or educated on children that have any type of mental disorders? And also, have you seen it executed in the schools, or do you still feel like they still jump to the conclusion of this child must be bad or they must have an attitude problem and not immediately think, let's make sure there's not an underlying issue somewhere else?
For sure, for sure. I don't. I have worked with children myself. I worked in childcare for 3 years, and I've seen kids as young as my age, 3 and 4 years old, that their personality traits were similar to mine, and they were really just. Some of them, they were angry. Some of them were withdrawn. Some of them wanted to be alone. If someone came into their immediate space, they automatically reacted, and it made you wonder, okay, something's going on with this
Mhm.
child beyond, what you can physically see. So me personally, because I had dealt with that, I would take a different approach with the children, but I would also see other people that worked with me that didn't have the patience for this type of behavior or particular child because they weren't used to it. So that child was automatically in their mind and in many of people's minds written off. Their parents would be frustrated with them. And I'm like, when you sit down and actually talk to a child or you take a different approach, if they're used to you being aggressive with them or angry or really sharp with them, they're going to shut down. A child is instantly intimidated, so they're either going to shut down and not speak at all, or they're going to become enraged and they will cut up and act out. And so in the school systems, I feel like it's a fail. I feel like mental health is nothing really done about it. They say they have counseling set up in the school systems and so forth, but when I was in school, counseling was there, but it wasn't to where you felt comfortable enough to go to the counselors and say, hey, this is what I think is going on with me, blah, 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 blah. You were only sent to counseling when you act out and they felt like you needed some type of big brother, big sister outreach. Um, um, the signs are ignored all the time. Kids are living with these issues every day, and a lot of them are greater than my own. They have adolescents bipolar disorder, adolescents schizophrenia. They have the anxiety, and a lot of the times when you're diagnosed with one disorder, you have a multitude of disorders that are underneath that diagnosis. So it makes it that much harder for that child to go to school and act like a regular child in that regular setting, getting that regular education. It's not set up that way. Every child cannot learn the same under the same stressors or under the same, it's a disadvantage to that child for sure. I felt I was at a disadvantage.
And I know you mentioned, mm, and oh, I was just gonna say, I know you mentioned with the daycare as well, and I just wanted to find out, at least at the particular company that you work for, and I know that it's a chain. We don't have to say any names, but I know that it wasn't just a mom and pop one daycare, that they were part of a system and they have daycares in other cities and other states. So, as a part of your training in the facility, was there, outside of this child takes medication, was there ever any direct training from the daycare to say, hey, the children that take medication for certain um, mental health diagnoses, and these are some tips or ways for you to deal with them as a coach, with it as a teacher? Was there any training on that?
No, there was no training directly for that child that were on medication. A lot of stuff is because of the rights, a lot of times, and it's not really staff's fault because a lot of times you're not made aware of what's really going on with the children for privacy rights. So if a child is diagnosed with being bipolar or schizophrenic or things of that nature, due to privacy rights, oftentimes you're not told. You're left dealing with a child who's acting out or that is withdrawn. And you, as that teacher, that lead teacher, or in that room, you're expected to have set amount of children on top of this particular child. And you might have a multitude of children with the same type of, issues going on. And you're supposed to still run your classroom professionally, curriculum based wise. And these kids are not set up that way. So it's really stressful for the teacher as much as it is for that child because the teacher can't reach that child because she's unaware of what's really going on. And, a lot of times you're restricted from having that one-on-one talk with the parent due to regulations and due to, guidelines that you're under as that paraprofessional. To help
Got you.
turn this
So,
into a good day. You know, you're told that Tommy, if
well,
Tommy's
thank
having
you
a
for
bad day, basically put sugar on top of it. Don't let the parent know as to how bad of a day that child's really having,
right.
because a lot of the focus is really on what's been brought into that facility, what type of monies those facilities are making. I've worked for a network
Hmm.
of companies, and I worked for the moms and pops, the little single owned family businesses, and they all run the exact same way. If the money's there, don't if it's not broken, why fix it? They don't care.
Wow. And it's disheartening to hear at least the sentence that you said, and that there, at least in your opinion and experience, not enough support or education there for the teachers, or at least awareness so they can know what they are dealing with. But we're halfway through our show. And again, thank you, LaDonna, so much. We want you to stay on screen because a lot of what you said is going to blend over into this second guest as soon as we have take a little break and have our announcements and do our giveaway. But I want to start back with the point of you saying that there are children that come to school, and sometimes even at a young age they already have a couple of diagnoses or a multiple diagnoses. And that's where we're going to start with you, Miss Leanna, to help help story, because I believe you can agree with what LaDonna has said, that that is absolutely true. And I thought we were going to go one way. Hey, we go the way that the conversation takes us. If there's any out there looking, if you are an educator, if you are someone that has influence in that arena, that's been one of the biggest things now. Because I'll just say this, and we're going to take our break. Is that I too have worked with youth in several different capacities, but one of the most recent things being the summer camp that we do at our ministry. I've hosted that now for about 10 years on my own, even before ministry. And over the course of time, I have seen so many children with either diagnosed or undiagnosed mental disorders. And one of the biggest things is that they kept getting in trouble at school. And there was knowledge that the child may have been on some type of medication, but there was not the proper environment to help the child cope with that. And I think there really needs to be some changes. There needs to be some legislation or something done to make it so that there's more than just an IEP. And I know what all the teachers and educators are going to say across the board, there's not enough money and there's not enough time. But you think about it, if you would stop and take the time in August, somebody, because I'm not blaming the teacher, it's a collaborative effort I know that needs to happen. But if somebody stops to say, hey, we are going to learn from the beginning how this child copes, then by the time November, December come, you possibly would not have had several write-ups or several disciplinary issues with the child, because you keep trying to force your way of doing things off on them, and that's not how they respond. And I've had experience with this. Being my last point on this subject is because my son has a diagnosis of ADD. He's not hyperactive, but he has an attention deficit. And there's a couple other things that go along with that that are not diagnosed, but I believe that we're going to pay some attention to that soon, because I'm starting to see a level of frustration seemingly manifesting some into depression, because he has a certain way that his brain processes the work. And even as a teenager, he's overwhelmed when he's given more than one sheet of paper. And
Mm-hmm.
Leanna has even participated in tutoring and helping him through some things. And he'll shut down. He'll shut down and check out. And I get phone calls. Mrs. Taylor, your son is sweet as pie. He does not cause any problems in the classroom, but he
Mm-hmm.
just does not finish his work, or he stays off task, or he just kind of shuts down. And I'll sit there and watch him. And while everybody else is working, he just stops. And I finally, after several years with that, and when I say several years, I recognize this in kindergarten. It was not until we got to middle school, and there was an IEP teacher that was caring enough. And I did say that, caring enough, because I know that the paperwork and the load is so heavy sometimes on these teachers and especially IEP teachers because they got one servicing so many different classrooms and so many different students that they just do what they can to help the child shuffle along through the day. So there was one that was caring enough to sit down and say, we are going to specifically work out some strategies. And one of the biggest strategies is when he is given a test, to make sure that we chop it into pieces. That if it's a piece of paper that's being handed out because they were just transitioning to the Chromebooks, but anyway, they was having mostly paperwork. And she said, if it's 2 or 3 pages, request that the teacher tears the paper apart.
Mm-hmm.
And just that little thing helped. But I'm like, I didn't really know how to pinpoint that or help him get those skills together. And I'm like, if there's educators in place though, is there not something that educate them to say, hey, if you're dealing with a child with an attention deficit, these are possibly some things that you can try to help this child be more successful in completing their work? Because with him, they were giving him extra time, but it didn't matter. You could give him a whole extra hour. If his brain becomes overwhelmed in the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
not going to finish it in an hour.
Yeah.
So thank you again, LaDonna, for sharing that. And again, hopefully, if there are some educators out here, somebody that can really make a difference, parents, you can make a difference. If you have a child that is dealing with a mental health disorder, and it seems that the schools, because they're with the schools most of their waking day during the week, 5 days a week, what about 40 hours in a job? In school
Yeah.
is 6, 7, or 8 hours. I'm trying to
It's about
calculate it in my head.
7, a
Leanna, you're
little
going
bit
to
over
calculate it
7.
for me, I know.
7, about 7 and
Right, it's
45
about
minutes.
7 hours. So that's just,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so that's the bulk of their waking hours. So there's got to be more education on how to cope with this so children that are facing it can be more successful. So, Leanna, at this point in time, and we're now way over halfway, so let's make this a little quick so we can get back on track. You have a couple of announcements concerning the Life Center and things that's going on there, and then you're going to do a giveaway for lunch.
Yes, ma'am, I am. The first announcement is that the Life Center of
Okay.
Columbus Helping Hands Ministry is to reopen next Thursday, June 4th, 2020, and all you would need to bring is a valid source of ID. You may ask what Helping Hands is, and Helping Hands is simply a food and clothing giveaway that the Life Center does in hopes to, help someone in need, just not on a one-time basis, but it's every week. And all you have to do to participate is, like I said, bring a valid form of ID and sit through Bible study with us. And, just hear the word of God, because even though it may not reach you that one day, it's always other days that it can help you. And it's always good to, just come and fellowship with other people. So we invite you all to come out and participate next Thursday, June 2020. And the next announcement is that we have a lunch giveaway. We have 2 today. So all you have to do in order to
Okay. All
participate in the
right.
lunch giveaway, the first entry is to comment simply a number 1 through 35, and the first person to comment a number actually picks the winner. And these numbers go based off the individuals. The women are part of the Life Center Women's Outreach Ministry. So the first person to comment on the live video, a number 1 through 35, wins $10 for lunch. And the second person who will win $10 for lunch, all you have to do is comment your Cash App down below on the live video. You don't have to be a part of the membership or the group. All you have to do is comment your Cash App. And those are the end of our announcements.
Thank you, Leanne. I'm going to reiterate one more time for those people that are watching is you do have to redeem or claim your free lunch during the time that we're on live or an hour afterwards. After an hour afterwards, we kind of get caught up in our day and may not go back and check it. So at that point, you would have forfeited your lunch. But again, she just needs one person to pick a number between 1 to 35.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, a number from 1 to 35. So if someone who's watching, if you can just pick a number 1 to 35, there's 35 women in our ministry outreach group that's on Facebook. You can join, although it is a private group, but you can just find the page, the Life Center Women's Ministry Outreach, and request to become a member, and we will definitely allow you to be a part of it. So we have the first lunch giveaway. We want to bless one of those ladies. So we need one of you guys' numbers so we can pick a first person to put their cash app that's not a member of the group. Just anybody that's watching, man or woman. It does not matter if you're a teenager, that's fine. If you would drop your cash app, then you'll get $10 for lunch as well. And I can't see the comments from where I am. So if we don't have any comments with a number, LaDonna, can you pick a number between 1 and 35?
I'd say 11.
11. And who is number 11, Leanna? Did she pick
IKEA
herself?
Washington. It's
IKEA,
IKEA
Washington.
Washington.
Okay, great deal. Okay, we're going to post that on the page, so hopefully you'll get a chance to see it before 2 o'clock. Is that the cutoff time? Before 2 o'clock? And then if there's someone who is watching that will be blessed with $10 for lunch for your cash app, just the first person with between now and drop their
Yes,
is
ma'am.
going to get $10 for lunch. I don't know about you, that's enough for me to get some wings and a few French fries and
The
something
soda.
to drink. So come back to the show, and Leanna, we are watching the time, but we're going to allow you a fair amount of time, and you end up going a little over today, but that's okay because this is such an important subject. This is such an important subject. So we want to just jump right on back in here. So just keep the ball rolling right where we are talking about young people that have multiple diagnoses. And again, you all, this is Leanna. She is my assistant or co-producer of this show because she's representing the Life Center Women's Ministry. And I wanted to put that little bit in there because there are people around us every day that is coping and dealing with a mental health diagnosis that sometimes we don't even know because they're so cheerful. They are so just bubbly. And that's Leanna. Leanna is always on point. She's always bubbly. She'll talk to a snake. She doesn't care who she talks to, a conversation with somebody. She's just that friendly. And so unless you get to know her and she tells you, and I think you're doing a great job, Leanna, with you. See, she's laughing already. I think you're doing a great job with coping with your diagnosis because people that did not for a fact, you would have to tell them because you've learned over the years how to continue to be productive, continue to just group. Leanna won't, and I'll say this and be done. Leanna is not going to let you leave her out. Anything happens, she's going to volunteer for it. And if you try to leave her out, she's going to go down the hall and say, Apostle, so and so said they didn't need anybody else, but they want to help. And she'll find some way to evolve. And I think that I may be wrong, but I'm assuming that perhaps that is one of the coping mechanisms that you've developed. That if you keep yourself busy, keep yourself active and integrated in positive things in life, that it helps you. Without further ado, Lana, go ahead and tell your story of your diagnosis as a student, if you don't mind starting there for me.
Okay, well, I want to say that my accurate diagnosis right now is bipolar depression. And I do want to say it started when I was around 12 or 13. And I had the typical childhood, growing up on the south side of Columbus, just being social, talking to everyone. I got in trouble here and there, and it wasn't really a big deal. But, emotions do take on a toll on individuals sooner or later. So I want to say when I was around a month before my 13th birthday, and I was going to Middle School, and I was having some issues, so I was sent away to a behavior institution, and they would tell me, well, you just have a behavior problem, and you just need to work on you acting out and stuff like that. And I was just like, I'm not really feeling that. Even though I know I was a troublemaker at times, I wasn't really a pessimistic person. Like, I wasn't a bother to other people. It was more of a deep down emotion I felt within myself of how do I contain it or what's going on with me. So a couple years, I started having little anxiety, panic attacks, and I would just keep to myself because I wasn't really feeling the rodeo of hanging with other people and just trying to be so social at times. So around 10th grade, I had an episode one morning. I was going to school. I was in high school at the time. and I lost it. It was bad, and the emotions I felt that day, I would say I was hurt. I felt some resentment towards people, and I was just the typical teenager, just misdiagnosed because I knew it wasn't behavior issues. I never got in trouble in school. I was never really suspended, maybe one time, but that wasn't nothing that would relate to me feeling how I was feeling. So I ended up, at school I had an episode and they called the ambulance. And the ambulance took me to St. Francis, and then I had to end up going to the Bradley Center here in Columbus. And they were like, "Have you ever taken medication?" And I was like, "No." And they were like, "Well, we're just gonna start you on Prozac." And I'm like, "What is that?" And they're like, "Oh, it's the antidepressant." And I was like, "But I'm not depressed." Even though deep down I knew I was having some emotion problems, they were like, "You're depressed. You're going through depression. It's pretty normal for kids your age. When we see them come in, that's usually what they have." And I'm like, "But I'm not depressed." I was so persistent on trying to tell them that. And they were just like, "It's called bipolar depression." And I'm like, "Bipolar," but that's what I used to call, because I was a hypocrite at one time, and I was like, "That's for crazy people." I'm not depressed. Bipolar depression. I wasn't crazy or anything. So they were like, "That's what it is." And I was taking the medication for a little while, and I could see it started to affect my mood. I was more mellowed out. I wasn't really more happier, but I wasn't so sad sometimes. And I would say a big contribute of that goes to my teachers, because like LaDonna was saying, in school it's not really something that's taught or that you just have that general knowledge on. But in my school, I had that support from teachers and the counselor. We had this one-on-one connection where, we would have our weekly talks. I would go in there every week and we would just talk about what was going on. And it was more of like a relief for me, because I'm like, well, I don't understand why they would diagnose me with bipolar depression when I was just 2, 3 years ago told that I have a behavioral problem. So it is something that's, not commonly told in schools. But I can say a way that I cope with it, like Miss Taylor said, is like I love to be around people sometimes, for the most part. I love to keep myself busy and entertained and interact with other people, because I just feel like, if you're by yourself, it just makes you more sad and down and lonely. You're like, well, I can be doing this or I can be doing that, but it's really more about how you deal with it, and it's just the general knowledge of knowing that having a mental illness does not make you crazy at all. It doesn't. It's a lot of people ask, and someone asked me the other day, what is the normal way of living for a person with a mental illness? And I say, well, nothing's truly normal. There is a normal. You know, a normal is basically waking up, doing this, doing that, and then just eating and going to sleep, being on a set schedule. And for me, I can't be on a schedule, because that's not how my mindset works. I'm always so used to doing things differently each day. I try to plan my days, they never work. So it's like I have to be different out of the box. And I just feel like surrounding myself with people is a way of me be coping and just having that free will to control my life in some way.
Well, thank you so much, Leanna, for sharing that. One of the things I want to jump right in on, I just want to remind you ladies that we have about 10 minutes. We can probably stretch it to 15, but I believe we can hit some really important points even in that time period. I'm going to have to come back and do a part two, because I really have so much more that I want to talk about. I haven't even really touched my notes or some of the questions that we thought we would get to. But this is just so interesting to me. I want to hear from both of you at the same time, and we'll just kind of wrap it up together, Leanna, if that's okay with you. But you said something important, Leanna, about the support system that you did have in place at school. So I have a twofold question, and either of you can answer it, or both of you can answer it. Is how important has your support system been in you learning to cope? And you've already told who your support system was, um, Leanne, and I think you did touch on it, LaDonna. But if you would just give us a little bit more information on who your support system was or is that's helping you through the periods that you're going through, and why it's so important to have a support system. So I'm going to start with that question, and I have another question that's related to support system. But how important is it, and who is your support system?
It's almost the matter of life or death, honestly, as far as having a support system, because um, oftentimes your support system they're there to kind of reassure you that one, you're not going crazy, that two, that you are loved unconditionally no matter the issue that you're having, and three, just having somebody there with you because it's some of the scariest moments in your life where you feel like you're spiraling out of control and you feel like you're losing control, and they're there to remind you that hey, you're not losing control, you're perfectly normal, you're just you're going through something, you're going through something that's, it's like a struggle, but you're okay. And so I'd say my support system has always been my mom. My mom is a praying, God fearing woman, and she always reiterates back into, you know,
And I think we've lost just a little bit of volume on you, LaDonna. Excuse me, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I want people to hear what you're saying. I think we lost a little bit of volume on it. Does it feel seem that way to you, Deanna?
it
Just a
does.
little bit.
Okay, try it again. Let's see.
Can you hear me now?
Okay, you can. Okay, yes,
So
better.
my support system is my mother,
Yes,
Sarah.
ma'am, we
My
can.
mom has always been a part of the biggest, one of the biggest support systems because she's a God-fearing woman. She's always praying for me. She's like the prayer warrior. She's the person that I call when I legit feel like I'm at my wit's end. And the reason why it's so important to have someone that is, deeply rooted into the Bible, that just goes back to the Bible and your beliefs and your religious background is because when you have nothing left and you feel like the doctors can't help you, because I've been there, when you feel like your support system can't help you, I've been there. When you feel like reading the Bible for yourself is not good enough or your prayers are not being answered because it's you and you feel like something's wrong with you, I've been there. To have that support system where somebody's faith, because they've been through so many more obstacles than what you could ever imagine, is still so strong. It gives you hope and it makes you re-believe in the word. So, um, and the reason why I say my mom as well, because my mom has endured a loss of a husband, a loss of a child, a loss of her parents. And so, with her having to endure so many losses, she still is rooted into the Bible. And so, for that, I get a lot of my strength from it, from watching her. Another one of my support systems is my boyfriend. He has PTSD from the military, and with that, it comes a strain of, depression, anxieties of his own. Yet he's able to understand me better than the average person who lives a life that has never dealt with anxiety or depression. So he stands with me and he knows like what I go through on a daily basis. And he's always there to remind me, babe, you got this. It's going to be okay. Like, you're okay. My daughter, at 13 years old, she is so just like, I don't even know how to describe it. She's such the little girl, but she's so much more mature past her years. She has taken on a role of being that being that nurse, being that doctor, being that support system. My daughter even comes and prays for me, and she's had to grow up a lot quicker. She's only 13, but she has the mindset already of a 17, 18-year-old woman because at the end of the day, she's had to watch me go through my episodes and it has scared her, you know, and she's always been the one to say, Mommy, it's okay. I bring her to my appointments with me, and I wanted her to understand that although I'm having anxiety attacks and although my heart rate is up and although I feel like I'm dying, I have them reiterate to her as well as me that I'm going to be okay, like I'm fine. And that takes a lot of worry away from her because then again, anxiety disorders, mental health disorders, they can be passed on from generation to generation. It's not just an environmental thing. So for her, it makes me more aware of what it is that she goes through. So the three main support systems are the three of them, and then my family as a whole. They all have been there and walked the walks with me, and been to the hospitals with me, and been at my house when I've called them or got on the phone with me in the middle of the night when I'm going through a really bad attack, and they're calming me down. And so yeah, it helps. It really helps to have. And my friend Danielle, Miss Taylor, has been a whole support system as my best friend
Me?
because there are things that I've been able to come to her and talk to her about, And I've cried with her, and she's shown up for me, and she's been there through a lot of my obstacles and a lot of my ups and downs. And I feel like you need a friend, somebody who is not there to judge you, somebody who's there to pass on their guidance and their life experiences and how they've been able to manage life and cope through their own journey. You know, she's always been that strong person, you know, that I see in my life, you know, that I look up to as well. So I think with having
Oh.
all of them together, it just balances me out.
Well, thank you so much for those kind words. And, when you care about a person, it should be easy for you to at least be patient with them, even if you don't quite understand everything that's going on. And it kind of slides me into my next part of this question, anyways. But I do want to touch on something that you were saying earlier when you was like, you don't know how it affects your family. So the person that's dealing with the mental illness, just kind of be a little kind and patient with your family too, as they are learning about what it is that you are going through. And, you and I have talked, and there's, someone that's really close to me that, I never had a clue that I would have to, be a part of a situation where there was a diagnosis of a mental illness outside of my son, that somebody else that would be really close to me. And of course, it's a different diagnosis. Every diagnosis is like you're dealing with it a different way. But again, it's easy to be patient with someone that you love and care for anyway. But my next question is when you're not that close to someone, I know that sometimes people can try to take an interest and want to be a support system, but they do the wrong things. And I think that we're going to kind of end right there. But I do want to at least get this out, because I want to let the public know just some of the stigmas that are out there about people with mental health. Sometimes people feel as if, and you guys have maybe had some of those experiences, that they got to walk on eggshells around you, or they've got to kind of treat you as if you're not an adult or intelligent, because they know that you have a diagnosis. So that sometimes people may kind of talk around you. I'm just going by some of the things. I was reading a list that the Mayo Clinic put out, that there are different stigmas. And it's not that people have to be on eggshells per se, or even draw a stigma conclusion. I think they just need to find out what's the right thing for you at that particular time. And every time might be different. So what are some of the things that people that come in contact with you, maybe kind of getting close? And I'm really kind of hitting a ministry now. People that they see all the time because they're a church member. And we kind of talked about that the other day, Holy Holly. I'm sorry,
Um,
Leanna. But people that are, that's a nickname, y'all. That's her nickname. I didn't mean to call you a nickname. I'm sorry, Miss Leanna. But sometimes you become connected with people. They're kind of on the outside looking in, and they want to help, but sometimes they do all of the wrong things. That's been a part of kind of my experiences, learning some things with the person. Sometimes I think I'm doing the right thing, and it's not the right thing. And it's going to be different for each of you. But just what are some of the things that you've experienced that people try to be there and try to support you, and really you kind of like, just no, leave me alone, because that's not what I need right now. We'll start with you, Luann, and then we'll go back to LaDonna. But I just wanted to mention, I think one of the things that you said to me before, LaDonna, sometimes you just want people to listen, like let you say what you got to say, kind of let you get it out, and not try to help fix the situation. So just kind of things like that. What do people do, Leanna, that you want to just advise those that are watching and say, hey, this is how you can be a better support?
I would definitely say that that is true in regards to ministry. Of sometimes people can be a bit overbearing, is the word. And I would say that just simply because, I've grown a close relationship with most of the members or the people in our church. So it's very essential that, I try, but not everyone, some people are very private. So it's good to keep that one person in the loop that'll, like, if you don't come to church, they already know, maybe you're not feeling good, or maybe you're just having a bad day and you're just like, I just don't want to be with or around anyone. And sometimes people just fail to understand that. And it's like there's always that stigma or that just assumption of, well, she didn't come to church, so she just doesn't want to be here. So maybe everyone should call her and see what's going on. And sometimes that's a trigger for people, to just communicate with the outside. It's just a trigger. And I would just say that people need to be mindful of that. Even though you don't know what's going on, it's not always good to, just overbear and overstep boundaries, and just, don't go around spreading that around the church or around the ministry, because it's not always true that someone doesn't want to be there. It's just they need a day off. And I think sometimes people fail to realize that. So, I mean, it's always good to have open relationships, but sometimes it's even better to have private relationships within the ministry, except with a few couple of essential people that you really, trust to tell that to.
Okay, and thank you for sharing that. Because I know that's one of the things that is a new topic in a way for churches and ministries, because churches and ministries like never really talked about mentalness before in the capacity that is being discussed today. It was always, well, you just need to go pray, and you still need to hold on and be strong and have the faith. And like you say, just press your way and come to church anyway. And they just don't understand that sometimes you just can't, like mentally and it takes you physically, that sometimes, like you say, you just need a break. So I want to say this to the pastors and people that are in ministry and that's in leadership in those areas that's watching, whether you know of it for a fact or not. But if you know it for a fact, allow people their space, give them the support that enough to just let them know, hey, we're concerned and we care about you. But you do have to give people the space so they can make their two off, regroup, use some of the coping mechanisms, get with their other supports, because we want to push ourselves down people's throat all the time, but they probably have somebody else that's in their circle that may be better suited for dealing with them during that time. Give them their time, give them their space. I promise you, if you do that, they will respect you for it. They will love you. Am I right, Holy Holly? And
You're
Leanna,
absolutely right.
and they will definitely make it back to the house of God. They will make it back to the activities or whatever they were involved in, if we would just be more understanding as a ministry. And then from you, LaDonna, I'll hit on just the work environment, because I know that that was one of the things for you. And not to say that the people were not supportive, but I know perhaps maybe sometimes on your job or people that you dealt with in your professional career that may know that a few little things were going on, and then they may have tried to reach out and they weren't giving you the right help or support. So what can you say about coworkers and employers or bosses that have someone that's working with them and there's a mental health diagnosis and a crisis happening right then? How can they be more supportive?
Um, I personally feel like if you are the bosses or if you're the bosses or if you play the significant role within that work atmosphere, I think the best thing you can do for someone who is going through a mental health type of issue or whatnot is to really just kind of take time to kind of have a one-on-one with them so that you're better aware, and they will let you know that, okay, this is what's going on with me, better than to assume that, hey, they're calling out of work just because they don't want to be here, they're lazy. Today they're here but they've checked
Right,
out, like they're not really doing like enough work, or people don't realize sometimes just being there, what it took to get to that job, that very moment in time. It took everything just to leave your house, leave your bed, leave the comfort of what you call your norm. And so once you've stepped outside of that and you're now in this work area, workforce, it's not to put extra stress, strain, or, on these people, because what it's doing is you're tearing that person down before you know it. Like you're tearing them down so far down that a lot of people have committed suicides leaving their jobs. They have went on lunch breaks, they've committed suicide because they try to
mm-hmm.
do
You're right.
what they had before, what brought them comfort. A lot of times my job, it brought me peace, it brought me happiness, but when I was going through my own tough break, the job no longer provided me with that. So I was at work only being, like I said, that robot. I'm doing things just because they had to be done. I wasn't getting enjoyment out of it, squeezing life out of me, to be honest with you. And many days I would sit out in the car and contemplate. Should I go into this job or not? Should I deal with these people or not? Because the worst thing you can do is act like you care, but the person that's going to know that you're just trying to when somebody takes something to you in confidence, it's not to go back and discuss it with everyone else around. The very least that you can say to them at
Amen.
best is that,
Amen.
this person's going through. They're going through their go through. Let them go through it. And then when they're back to themselves, then engage with them. But until that time, just let them be. If they want to come talk to you, let them talk to you. If they don't want to be bothered, they don't want to be bothered. Don't impress yourself too deep because it can scar that person.
And I think too, just from some of the conversations that we've had concerning things that may have happened at your jobs, is I think as employers, we have to be mindful of the fact that how we greet a person and how we start the day with our employees make a big difference. I know sometimes we get so caught up in making the almighty dollar that is the focus. And I've been reading things about, corporate groups and things that they are doing to pay more attention to the mental health. But I guess the point that I'm getting at is the climate of our workplace needs to be inviting to the point that someone, like you said, who may have had to use everything in them to press their way into work does not come in a work environment where they're starting to feel antagonized or judged because perhaps they are having a moment where maybe they're not working at the that they normally get. Maybe they've come in and they're not quite as talkative or responsive as they normally are. I
Mm-hmm.
think we have to always keep in the back of our minds before we go to a place of judgment, before we go in the other cubicle and say, I don't know what's wrong with Donna today, but she just came in here with an attitude or something. That, like you said, perhaps we need to stop and say, let me find one so we can address it and so I can be a support through the work day. Because it may be oftentimes that, the employer will see your disposition and knowing what's going on because they came in a posture and say, well, look, do you need the day off?
Yeah.
Do you possibly just need to, take a short day and just do half a day? Would that help you? So I think we just
Yeah.
really need to be a support in that area because I've worked on jobs and not even having uh, a diagnosis, but have been made to feel just so judged and so pushed. And even in kind of relating to the ministry situation where people try to push you to complete their agenda, not
Yeah.
understanding that emotionally you are in a place right now that you have to be supported before you can work, before you can go to church, before you can make it to the church cleanup,
Yeah.
that something is going on with you that day. And as much as you would like to be there, you can't touch a broom right now. And same thing with work. You would like to be that same person, but if I'm gonna be here, can I just rest in my cubicle and not deal with y'all today?
Yeah.
And can you give me that latitude without making me feel like I'm not a safe place? So again, thank you, ladies. I said about 45 minutes to an hour. We went over about 10 minutes. So I believe that's okay. And for the people that's watching, if you watch this later on, please do still share it with someone else. Again, we do have an hour. I hadn't checked to see if we had any comments yet, but we do have an hour for our lunch giveaway. So if you happen to watch this or you get to that part of the show later on, if you're the first person to drop your Cash App, then you can get free lunch. But I do want to do something for you ladies before we go, is that if both of you ladies would send me your cash, guys, $10 for lunch. Holy Holly, you've been dreaming of this your whole life, haven't you?
This does
Because you
not
try to always
expose
pull,
me.
you try to always
I mean, I had already counted my cash app
every week,
anyway.
LaDonna, every week she tried to pull her own name.
Oh.
So I pulled your name for you. So I would like to treat both of you ladies to lunch or just whatever you want to do for those $10. You want to go get yourself a tube of lipstick or something or some lip gloss. That'll be fine too. I do want to do that and say thank you all so much for joining us. For those of you that's watched, please do again share. You can join us on every Wednesday. And and I am going to put the information at the bottom of the screen that you can join us every Wednesday at 12 noon on the dot. We promise you we will be here. We will not be late. If we're late, then that means something is happening. There's definitely an emergency that I do want to share. Our airtime is Wednesdays at 12 noon. Again, it's on the bottom of the screen. We're going to leave it right there for just a few more moments. And also, you can watch us on Facebook and on YouTube. Everything is under J Danielle Taylor for my page. There's a phone number 470-729-0406. And you can also reach me via email at perfect10ministries@gmail.com. The last thing that I want to leave you guys with is something that I picked up off of the internet, and it's some tips to cope with stress during COVID-19. And if you would just take this information with you, those of you that's watching, or if you see and know that you're having a hard time coping with COVID-19, here are some tips for dealing with it. Tip number one is pause and notice how you feel. What we have been hearing and experiencing is that there has been a lot more domestic violence, a lot more situations of abuse with children, just a lot of turmoil being cooped up together, not being able to go to work, having to be around each other more than normal, and especially when there's someone that's dealing with a mental health diagnosis. I think it's important for our families and friends to know what to do and for you to know what to do to make sure that don't get having a relapse. But tips to cope with stress COVID-19 quickly. One, pause and notice how you feel. Step number two, and these are coming up kind of slow on my end. Step number two, take breaks from COVID-19 content. And this is why I wanted to share this before we got off the air. Is sometimes I feel overwhelmed by watching the calamities, watching how many more people die, watching, the fact that children are starting to get sick. Those things can even take a toll on your mindset. So if you're starting to feel a little stressed out just because of the news that you're seeing, what the professionals are suggesting is that you just take a break from having to deal with the news for a while and take a time to reset your mind. Make time for sleep and exercise. I mean, I think that's with anything in life, but definitely, would you say, Leanna, get a little time for yourself? Some of that time for yourself might
Yes,
just be,
ma'am.
y'all don't bother me. I'm getting ready to go ahead and take a nap. And you understand that your nap is your time to reset. time to reset. So make time for sleep and exercise. So Leanna, you're gonna go for that walk today, right?
Of course.
She must have tuned out, but yeah, she's gonna go on that walk with that little cat in the bushes. Number 4, reach out and stay connected. Make sure that you stay connected with your family and friends and the people that is your support system. And step number 5, tips to cope with stress. Help. Leanna is going to put in the comments somewhere that you can call if you are in a crisis and you just need someone to talk to. So please make sure that you seek help. And even if you are have a diagnosis, but you're starting to feel stressed, these tips can be very good for you. Because like I said, number 2 really spoke to me because sometimes I started to feel just disheartened from watching the different and everything that's on social media. And I had to kind of take a moment to pull away and regroup. So make sure that you please do follow these steps. Please take care of your mental health during this time period. Ladies, is there anything that you guys would like to say before we close this live?
I would just say in closing that can y'all hear me good?
Yes.
All right. I would just like to say in closing that, mental health, to be diagnosed or to go seek treatment, it shouldn't make you feel less than. It shouldn't make you feel like, oh, you're at the bottom of the totem pole or that, you're out here to be judged. At the end of the day, I feel
Yes,
like the
ma'am,
truth
Miss
is
Leanna.
many people are the people that go out and they do seek help for what it is that's going on with them. When you live a life in secrecy and you're ashamed of what all you have going on, it's like you can't help yourself. And as much as you want people to understand, people cannot read minds. So you have to take your own initiative and say, hey, something's going on with me, something's not right, no matter how it's coming out in this fit of rage, if it's coming out in depression, if it's coming out in sickness. You need to be your own advocate and go see about yourself, because only you can truly help you. And then once everybody else is aware, then they can jump alongside the bandwagon and be assistance to you. So that's the very first thing that you need to know, that it's okay to take medication. It is okay. It's perfectly normal to be on medications. If you have to take medication for the rest of your life to make sure that you're fine, and that's what you have to do. I've been taking medicine since I was 17 years old. I'm 35, and I have no shame in it. And so I just say, don't be your worst enemy. You are able to help yourself. Just reach out. And that's all that I would say in closing.
With that little cat in the bushes. Number 4, reach out, and stay connected. Stay connected with your family, friends, and the people that is your support system. And
Yep.
okay, ladies, I don't know what's going on, but I am problem on my side. I hope I'm not interrupting anyone, but I'm having a serious delay. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I'm having a delay too, and the volumes are really low.
Well, I guess that means it's time to wrap it up. So thank you, ladies, again. Don't forget to send me app. I love both of you and am praying for you. And am praying for you.
Love you
And
too.
before we go, we do like to end in a moment of prayer. Father, we thank you for being able to have these opportunities to share our experiences in this information with the rest of the community, the rest of the world. I pray specifically for Leanna and LaDonna that as they that things will get better and get easier, and that you will give them the wisdom and the strategies and the continued support to make it through um, each and every episode. Father, we thank you now that even as we embark on Mental Health Awareness Month, that it does not stop here, but that